Hello everyone. So it's Friday, 7th of August. I cannot believe it's August. I think most people feel this feeling that we have been in a very long day since March, and this year is just passing us by and we are not doing anything with it. But it's life, it's what happens, and I have done a lot of reading, so that's always a good thing. So the first thing that I finished this week is The Shepherd's Hat by Tim Winton. It's clearly because it's from the library. And this was a novel about this boy that when his mom has cancer and she kind of goes down in her consciousness and her behavior, he runs away, and the life he lives when he runs away. And yeah, it's an interesting concept to explore what it means to be home and what the home is, but I found it a bit generic, and I also found that the dialects that are used are not as appealing. I found it quite confusing to understand sometimes, and it's supposed to be written from the boy's perspective, who has not had a very big education, and then there are also some parts that are like in normal dialect, and it just didn't work completely for me. But doesn't mean it's a bad book. The next book I finished is The Source of Self-Regard by Toni Morrison. And this is a collection of essays, mostly about literature and race. And yeah, there were some really good essays. There's the one that was my favorite. I think it was the penultimate one. But in general, the ones that talked about race I really liked. The ones that talked more about literature went over my head. So it was a bit of a mixed bag, but that always happens with essays and collections and short story collections, I think. So yeah, overall it was a good book. Then I finished Fleishman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodesser-Akner. And this one is about Toby Fleishman, who is a doctor that is recently in the process of being divorced from his wife Rachel, and most of the book it's about the perspective of Toby and the marriage. It starts by, well, he has the children for the weekend, and Monday she's supposed to come pick them up, and she doesn't, basically abandoning them. And then we follow Toby's perspective on what was wrong with the marriage, what was wrong with their relation, why he thinks that she did that. And then the last part, which was like this part, we follow more Rachel's perspective, and that has a lot of commentary on the position of women in society, especially in American society, and how that affects their marriage in a way and their ambitions, because Rachel is a very ambitious person, and it seems that that was one of the biggest issues in their marriage. And the question is like why she shouldn't be ambitious, and just because she's a woman she's not supposed to just be a mother. And it also explores the issues with motherhood and what that means. And I thought overall was okay. Like, I enjoyed it. I read while I was reading it, and there were some kind of ridiculous things, like Toby Fleishman is supposed to be this not very attractive 40-year-old or so, but then he goes into this dating app and everyone is absolutely crazy about him, stuff like that. I took that as a parody of the typical male novel in which all these women are always on top of men, and there's a lot of talk about sex as roughly as sex, not has like a relationship or whatever of men with women. So I took it as that. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it sounded ridiculous enough that that would be the case. One thing that I was not sure how to feel about is that this is narrated from an old friend from Toby Fleishman, and she narrates the book, but the perspectives change. So at the beginning we are following Toby's thoughts, and then we follow Rachel's story, but when the narrator talks about I did this or I did that, it's from Toby's friend's perspective, and that was a strange choice. I'm not sure how I feel about that one, but yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I can understand why many people have issues with this, because it's as I said, a very male dominating novel for a big chunk of it. I think the end is trying to say like that's what women think when we read this kind of novels. But yeah, I overall quite enjoyed it. I thought it was easy to read, and it was yeah, interesting. Then I read Heartstopper by Alice Osman. This is a graphic novel about two boys that meet and fall in love, but one of them is in the closet, and it follows the process of him coming out of the closet, and also like the issues that the LGBTQ plus community face in general in society when they come out, and how they figure out their feelings, things like that. I picked it up because I wanted something short for a readathon, and this was short, and I heard it was very cute, and it was cute. They were both very cute, but it felt very educational, so it felt like the author wanted to make certain points about the LGBTQ plus community, and she did that by introducing some kind of story, but it was not about the story, it was about these points, and it was very clear what those points were, and it was very clear that it was just about the point that she was trying to make. So in that sense I didn't enjoy it as much. Also, I mean, personally I don't enjoy graphic novels in general as much, because they tend to be more shallow, because there are less space to expand on points, and of course that's my preference. That's not to say that there are not amazing graphic novels out there, but yeah, that's the general feeling I tend to get when I read those kind of books. Then I also read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and this was an audiobook, and this is the story of a couple. I think it's in the south of the US, and yeah, how they bear with the relation between black and white people, and at the beginning, like the first half felt very standard to me. The kind of writing is very typical of American literature, I find, and yeah, the story was just about this woman and the relationship of that woman with different men, and the relations within black men, and the difference in class within them, which was interesting, but it was just fairly standard, I would say. But then the second half I really liked, because something very dramatic happens, and then everything comes up much more stronger, and I think that is typical of a crisis, that the things that are wrong with the society come up then, like we are living now, and COVID is showing us everything that is wrong with our societies, that kind of thing. So I really appreciated that, and I ended up really enjoying that book. And then the last thing I finished this week is Little Eyes by Samanta Schweblin. And this one was a bit of a disappointment. It's my first Samanta Schweblin, so I haven't read, what is the other one, Fever Dream? But I picked it up because it was in the long list of the International Booker Prize, and I thought that the premise sounded interesting. So the book is about these Kentucky toys, which are animal, stuffed animal kind of thing, but they can move by themselves, and the idea is that a person buys them and they know that they have cameras in their eyes, and then there is another person that buys the license to that camera and that Kentucky, and they can move it around, so it creates like a connection between those two people. And it follows several people that have Kentuckys or have connections to Kentuckys, and in the several parts of the world, and what that develops into. So it talks a lot about voyeurism and surveillance and things like that, the lack of privacy in general in our society, which is something that is constantly increasing. So that sounded very interesting to me. However, the way that this is done is very choppy. Like the different storylines, let's say, or locations don't really have a lot to do with each other. It's just examples of how this Kentucky operates and how it affects people, but also the commentary on that surveillance and voyeurism was very surface level. It doesn't do anything special with it. There are things that we already know, so I didn't really know what the point of the book was. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but oh well, that happens. So yeah, that's all that I finished this week. I know it's a lot, but I'm participating in the Hyper Nation readathon from Simon from Savage Reads. So yeah, I'm trying to get all of the prompts in, so that's why there are so many books in here. And then the things that I am currently reading, the first one that I'm most actively reading is Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid, and this is part of the book club of Kieran from Katie Books. And this book, I think, has been described really poorly most of the places I've seen. So I have, what I knew about the book before starting it was, there is this black babysitter that takes a white kid into a shopping mall because the parents had an emergency, and in the shopping mall some well-meaning people around think that it might be because she stole the child, so they call the security, and the security gets really rude with her, and they all think that she stole the kid or something. And that's it. That's all I had heard. But yeah, it's not really about that. I think that's the starting point. That's where things start, and that event is referenced throughout the book. But it's not really about that. So what I think it is about, it's the mother of the child. It's a white feminist blogger, and she has a very performative life, and she had a very traumatic experience in high school with this boy, and this boy turns out to be Emira's, the black babysitter's boyfriend at some point. And when they learned that, yeah, there is a lot of things that happen from that. So I think that's what it is about. It's about these two people that come from very different positions in they are both white, but they have very different opinions on race and how to deal with race and racism. They both have good intentions, but they both don't really know how to deal with it in a way. And it's about what they do and what they think it's okay, and their reactions. It's not about the babysitter, it's not about the kid, it's not about that event. It's about the preconceived ideas that we have about black people and the microaggressions that they go through. And also another thing, when I heard that nobody explicitly said that, but when I read that description, I thought that this was going to happen in the span of 2 or 3 days, but it doesn't. That event happened on September, and right now in the book I have like about less than 100 pages left, and they are after Thanksgiving, so yeah, it's quite a few months. It's not just a couple of days. And yeah, so the premise sounds interesting. I think it's worth exploring the microaggressions that black people go through. However, in this book I think that those are the driving force of the book. It's not the plot, it's not the characters. The characters fall very flat for me. The plot is not really existing other than exploring that race thing and see how they react. So that is the point of the book. And I think that for me that is a bit yeah, it's a bit like Heartstopper. It just doesn't do it for me. And also the discussion around those microaggressions, it's a very surface level one. I think it just puts them in the table, which is very valuable for people that do not know or are not aware that these things happen. But once you know, that's where it finishes for me, I think. So it doesn't go into a deeper conversation about white supremacy or racism in any significant way. Yeah, and as I said, the characters are very flat for me. They feel like caricatures. I'm not sure, I'm not American, but I'm not sure if anyone would be like they portray, like especially Alex, the mom of the kid. It feels so unreal to me, so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just because I'm not American, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, and I am planning to finish that today, hopefully. And then the other things I'm reading is Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad, and this is more of a workbook. So it gives you prompts every day to journal about your inner biases and your inner compliance with white supremacy. And this book, I mean, it is super interesting and super valuable what it's trying to do. I think that some of the prompts and some of the discussions assume things about people that are not necessarily true. For example, it equates race with culture, which I think it's not correct to do, because there are many black cultures, there are many white cultures, and assuming that just because you're white and you live in a white country, you are going to be part of the culture, it's incorrect. Also, it assumes that you are white and you live in a white country, because if you live in a black country, many of the things will also not apply to you, especially in the first few prompts, because the first few prompts are trying to make you realize how the things around you are tailored for white people, and that obviously means that you are in a white country. But that, I don't think that is as problematic. The fact that if you are in a country with the majority of people have a certain culture, the things that you find in shops are mostly from that culture. That makes sense to me. When I was living in Kenya, most of the things I found in the supermarket were Kenyan, because I was in Kenya, you know, so those things are a bit yeah, tailored for a certain situation, so they cannot apply for everybody. And that was a bit frustrating at the beginning, but now we are getting more in depth into the internal biases about what we really think about race and black and white people, and of course other people of color, but it focuses mostly in white and black or people of color. So yeah, I think that I'm gaining things from it. I'm working through it, and it's valuable for any white person that is not aware of their privileges, or even if you think that you are aware, you might find things that are still valuable from it. But yeah, just be aware that not everything might apply to you. And that, of course, it's a workbook for 28 days, so it will I will not be finishing it anytime soon. It will take me a couple of weeks to go through all the prompts. And then the last thing I'm reading, it's another audiobook. I'm reading An Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde, and this is a play. It's a very short audiobook. It's like less than 4 hours long, and it is basically following this couple, and the husband has some secrets and they are revealed to the wife, and a bit like how they all react. And of course it's Oscar Wilde, so it's very humorous and very funny. I don't think it's as good or as funny as his other plays that I have read or listened to, so I think that the importance of being earnest or A Woman of No Importance are better plays and funnier plays than this one, but it's still funny, and it's still a good listen. So I'm doing that when I go to my runs. So yeah, that is all I'm reading. What I'm going to read, well, once I finish Such of an Age, I want to read How We Disappear by Jing-Jing Lee, and this, as I think it's about a girl that grows up in Singapore as a sex slave or something like that, and this one is for the hibernation again, so hopefully I will finish it tomorrow, we'll see, but at least I want to start it, and yeah, we'll see. And then the other thing that I want to start this week is Datsun by Cixin Liu. I want to get some series close this month, and this is one of the ones I'm reading, and it's a bit of a chunker, so I want to get a head start on this as well. So yeah, that's all I'm going to be reading, and hopefully also, by the way, Real Life by, I don't remember the author's name, I'll put picture here, but that is the next book, I think, in the Katie Booker Prize book club. So yeah, I'll put all the information to that book club and the readathons and whatever down in the description. And let me know if you're also participating. Let me know if you have read any of these books, and if not, what have you been reading. And see you next time. Bye.